Here we go. The broadcast is live.
It is live, and Scott, there at the very moment that we were going to go live, when we were talking background where we couldn't put a sheet of paper, he came up with a better title for this show, which should have been the Bitching Hour. Yeah. So you're here to see three old men and the 40-year-old babe Palos that here maybe complain about work and life and stop records and cars. So.
And how your body betrays you when you get older.
Yeah, so after I've said that, and we've already been talking, how's everybody really doing this week? You know,
worse than that.
My week on Wednesday, it was Tuesday. Pardon me. I wrecked my website, radiantcomics.com, where I have my webcomic. I know just enough about websites and stuff to wreck things.
Gotcha.
And I wanted to try and fix it. And instead, I wrecked it. Luckily, I have a friend who could help me out with it, because I was just like, I don't know if you guys have ever done web work, any kind of website work where you have to figure out what you're doing, basically. I'm talking the back end of not the graphics.
It's been so long, a little bit over a decade, that it amazes me that I know just enough to know that it was simpler a decade ago, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I never learned how to work style sheets, but I still remember HTML.
But it's like, if you, unless you're like a full-time web person, everything you do will take you 2 days, you know?
All right, guys, we've already got people here. They jumped on tonight, man. And I finally we are showing up on YouTube. That was a worry, but that's good. As soon as we went live, I saw my little thing on my tab. We have Mind the Comics here.
Mind the Comics.
Earthlings here. Rob Ripper, ready for a good show. No pressure, you know.
Sorry to disappoint you already.
And the great Dr. Silver H, who could be here with us during the bitching hour, because I swear I saw something on Facebook maybe today where something happened. So hope it worked out for you, Dr. Silver H. So you can be on there. But as I was telling you guys, you know, today, you know, before I spent all that money on the car, the YouTube money came in. My first payment in like a year or something, right? And I've hit 3,000 subs. I've been playing around on Instagram with a hashtag, and more people have found me or something. So I finally it took 10 years, but I broke 3,000 subs, 10% of which, you know, watch us. So yeah.
I don't know. I think 5% watch us.
might be, yeah. But I got a new rack. I got the short boxes off the floor, most of them.
Nice rack there, Tim.
Yeah, thank you. So as I was going through there, it's like I don't feel like I really need to buy new comics, because I'm rediscovering some of the old stuff. I got room to unbox some stuff. And I found a bunch of my magazines that I've been missing since I moved last year, and I was so happy. All right. And it just amazes me how, like, this stuff here, I almost want to I started getting the bug to start going back to get them, man. You had like these old Marvel previews where Roy Thomas did the Gladiator story, you know, the Philip Wiley story there that predates Superman, about the Superman. And it just kind of shows you how that young mind of mine of reading all this stuff. I swear I thought these comics came out in the 80s, and it turns out it's like 1978 and stuff.
Yep.
But it's the perverted 1984 stuff.
I had a couple of those. They weren't very good.
Well, it's the art. It's where it was worn. I think it's worn. Yeah, Ward magazine. It's the art that I remember enjoying, because they had a lot of the guys that worked on like the Vampirella stories. Alex Nino.
Yeah, a lot of those Warren magazines actually just reprint stuff from other Warren magazines.
Yeah.
1984 was actually made in Spain, and I think Warren didn't have an editorial team at the time, because they just let the guys from Selecciones Ilustradas do everything. So they decided, well, let's just put more sex in here.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it was. Now, as a young boy, I shouldn't have been reading those, but apparently I read them longer than I thought, because I thought they came out in the 80s. So apparently I went back and reread them. I don't feel like a pervert, but the evidence
they
states
changed
otherwise. Yeah.
They
Don't
changed
feel
the
tardy.
name to 1994 in the
Yeah.
80s.
I was getting ready to say that. Yeah. Yeah. I found a missing Hulk magazine, so I got about like 5 of these now or something. I had some great Walt Simonson art in the first issue, and on the last issue, they sort of had an homage to the first page of the last one or something that people didn't pick up on. But the Glory, the one that I absolutely loved, and I was so glad to find these because I was actually sort of stressing it out, is I don't know if anybody knows who Remo Williams is, but I found my 9 Destroyer magazines with Lee Weeks, Steve Ditko, Sienkiewicz art.
Oh, yeah. Those came out in the 90s, right?
Late 80s up to
Late
about
80s?
1990. Yeah, 89, 90, 90, 91, something like that.
Marvel, right? Those were Marvels?
Yeah.
Okay. I vaguely remember them.
Yeah, they redid the first novel. There was like close to 200 Destroyer books, I think, that came out.
Yeah, there are a bunch of Destroyer novels.
And they were huge in my house. I mean, there was a bookshelf, and it was just Destroyer novels. I probably read about 20 over a course of, my high school era where I got a hold of them. But the first one definitely retold the first Pulp magazine. It's just fantastic. They did a great job with these. I kind of wish it would have lasted. And it was stuff like this that made me see the books I couldn't get because there was no comic book shop that was coming. Shadow Masters, the RoboCop. I mean, even the ads I really dug. But they did this one forever. They really pushed Ghost Rider, the new Ghost Rider, forever and ever. Months went by where it was like coming in March. And I know we were well past March.
Right. That was 1990, 91, I think, the new Ghost Rider.
Yeah, a Black Widow story where you found out she was married. Gary Conway did it. I never read that. And then, of course, The Punisher. It was the 80s,
We found out she was married in the True Believers reprint of Avengers 43. That's when we first found out. I just read it, so I know it because I got it last week.
Oh, yeah. That's
Hawkeye
awesome.
found out the Black Widow was married.
That's what I was getting ready to say. The Black Widow, I must have lucked up reading the Stepdad and Uncle's comics and then the Marvel Age and all that stuff. And I know she was popping up in Daredevil. But I'm the guy that remembers Black Widow wore a fishnet stocking leotard with a bathing suit over it. And she was a femme fatale. Hawkeye was her idiot boyfriend that she just used. That's the Black Widow I'll always remember. I don't care how cool she's got.
They just reprinted all of those in True Believers.
Nice.
Yeah. I got a bunch of them for $1 a piece. And you mentioned Alex Nino before?
Oh, yeah.
It's funny. I was just looking through, what was it? The Essential, not the Showcase Phantom Stranger. Just flipping through it, looking at the art. And there was some art I didn't quite recognize in there, but it reminded me the decorative qualities of it reminded me of Alex Nino. And it turned out it was Tony DeZuniga.
Right.
Oh, yeah. I remember as an inker. I know that name.
Yeah. He was an inker all the time, but he penciled and inked in these stories in The Phantom Stranger. I was like, I didn't realize he did penciling too in this. And he did, he used some of the decorative quality that Alex Nino has to his work. I was like,
Yep. Somebody's weeks wanting to see that, look up that True Believer. And Dr. Silver Age comes through for me. He's a huge Remo fan. He has over 100 of the paperbacks.
Do you remember the Remo Williams movie?
Yeah, I found it on like Quibi. Not Quibi, but like Tubi or something for free.
Right.
There we go.
This is the True Believers. And I didn't read them in order. Apparently, this one came first, and then came. I have a Spider-Man 86 where she gets her new costume. Comes after this one, I think. Or no, did she tell us? And then this one came. She's still in the old costume, and then Spider-Man 86.
Yeah, there's probably about a year difference between those two stories.
Yeah, and then this one comes where I think this is her first appearance since the Spider-Man one.
Issue 1 and 2 of that covers are so similar. I can't remember which one I have, but I think I have number 1 of that. What you just showed.
That reprints 1 and 2 of the Black Widow stories, and there's no Inhuman story in it. So
when the movie comes out, they should definitely use the Alice Cooper song in the soundtrack.
Yeah, that movie ever comes out. I think it was supposed to have been out in November or something. Wonder Woman and Black Widow should have already been out. We went and watched Hocus Pocus last Monday because I had the day off, and the wife likes Hocus Pocus. And
the Hollywood studios are going to go bankrupt before the movie comes out because since nobody can go to the movies, the studios aren't making any money. Imagine a whole year because of the pandemic where people can't get to the cinema. And Hollywood can survive a year without money coming in, no matter how many Netflix stuff they do.
Yeah. I don't wish bad things on people, but sometimes you just see things where you're like, karma's kind of weird, man, But for 35 years, I've carried this around, the G.I. Joe magazine, just an issue of it here.
Does it get heavy after that much time?
Yeah. But what was so funny is that it had this has a story in it with a group of kids who live in a clubhouse, and they've all made their own little costumes with things that every 80s kid had around the house.
Right.
That vest that looked like a life jacket, two white scarves to make a ninja mask, and I was just like, yeah, I mean, when the Goonies and this came out, I'm like, this is my year, I'm like, these are my people. Oh, it cracked me up. And the Great Robotics, if you go way back. Yeah. I still have the little man that came with those.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen that toy. I remember Zoids. Zoids were popular in Europe, but I'm not sure they were popular in North America. Because Marvel UK had a Zoids comic, and Grant Morrison even wrote some stories.
Oh, I think I remember that one, but I never read it. I just remember seeing it.
Well, I like when there's things that like I remember and I know nobody else does. I'm like,
I don't know. Every once in a while, you'll think of something that you think nobody else in the world knows, and then somebody else, hey, I remember that, and you're like, oh my God, there's two of us.
Like Brave Star. Brave Star was a failed toy line.
I remember Brave Star.
Yeah, they had a cartoon.
Yeah,
but there are very few U.S. comics featuring Brave Star, and I've seen the Italian comics. They had a Brazilian edition. Italian made Brave Star comics that were licensed around, but those never made it to the US, and the US ones were like 2 or 3. I think some Now Comics maybe did a 3D comic of it.
Blackthorn maybe.
All right, yeah, probably them, yeah.
More judging.
What kind of crazy G.I. Joe magazine is that?
I don't know. It seems like they should have numbers on them. This is winter of 1987.
That looks like Boys Life G.I. Joe magazine.
It kind of does, yeah. It's
got a Star Trek 4 interview. Now, this one I didn't pick up back in the day. You know what I mean? I think I got this one in the 90s, around the same time I got this one, right? Now, what I like about this is apparently when they mail these in, I got this in the 90s, and it still has the person's address on it from Bristol who did it, but it was warning them this is your last issue of subscription. And the He-Man magazine was a bitch because it would have posters in there you'd have to unstaple and pull out, and they didn't make it separate from the rest of the book. You had to sacrifice your book because you'll never read. If you hung it on the wall, you can never reread it because it has the actual pages of the magazine on the back. This one's not only intact, but this little cardboard cover to tell him that kept this in mint condition. So this is the Dolph Lundgren movie issue of Masters of the Universe.
That's what everyone's looking for.
Yeah. And they really want you to. They have 2 of these in there, reminding you as you read it that, like, hey, this is your last issue. So they printed this thing. They printed this thing in the book. So
it's bound right in there.
Yeah, that's what gets me. So apparently they must have had special issues just set to the side for people.
Yeah,
this is your last issue. So
you had to send that through a different binding process in order to get that in there.
So here you have a little sequential art story for your Masters of the Universe toys. When you turn around, you have like a little advertisement for the movie. That's the poster. You would have to take this out and destroy your book and never read the story again.
Huh. Mm-hmm. I've never seen the He-Man mini comics for the original toy line, but I remember having 2 promo mini comics for the 1990 reboot, The New Adventures of He-Man.
Oh,
the one where they send him to the future and he gets less buff
These I'll pull the books out for you, man.
They reprinted all those He-Man comics in a collection a few years ago.
I need to get it because I have the one there's an actual one that Bruce Timm did. The first sets that came out had a cardboard stock. They were much more barbarian-like. Alfredo
Alcala.
Thank you. Yeah, I can't believe that, but it looks like a lot of his art. This stuff was a lot more sci-fi and stuff. And I'm like one of those people that agree with the comparison that a lot of this stuff sort of felt like the New Gods. Like if you could switch your brain out and watch that god awful. I had the Masters of the Universe movie on VHS. I don't know if I have it on DVD, but I picked up on the fact that I felt like I was watching a New Gods movie if I thinly veiled, you know. But anyway, the cardboard stock on the first couple, and then they just started you can actually tell. That's how I knew how to put these in sequential order. You can actually feel them get cheaper and cheaper and brighter, you know. Cardboard stock, and then by the time you get to the end of it, man, it's pure paper, you know.
Somewhere around here, I haven't seen them in years, so I don't know where they are. I have a couple of the original Atari Force comics that came with the games.
Yeah, I would love to have those. I think there was 4 of them. The champ. Yeah,
I think I had 2 of them. I have no idea where they would be. I haven't seen them in so long.
Yeah,
I'll have to look around.
Maybe they're all buried in the desert next to all those ET cartridges.
But I got these for $0.25 a piece at a flea market last year, and I had one or two left over from when I was a kid. You know, so that was fantastic to find. But there's the Bruce Timm one in there. Bruce Timm is, of course, the guy who did the '90s Batman cartoon and all that stuff. Well, there's one that he did. Yeah.
Did you see they're reprinting those tiny Marvel books that used to come in gumball machines?
See, I want to say I remember those, but I remember so many little things coming out of those gumball machines and my Cracker Jacks and stuff. That
they were before our time. I think they were in the 60s.
Okay.
But there were little gumball machine books that had Marvel and DC characters in, and they're actually reprinting them in like a 5x7 book.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. I forget the names of them, but I don't know if it's out yet or if it's coming out at Christmas time.
Oh,
I'm really pissed off that I didn't keep my mini comics and promo comics. I don't know when I dumped them. I was probably 13 or 14 at the time. But now I kind of miss them. I had a great one from Nesquik, which was made in Portugal, because in Portugal the Quick Bunny was not the Nesquik mascot. We had a kangaroo, and they had the character introducing a comic about protected wildlife that lived in the Portuguese national parks. And I actually liked that one a lot. So I don't know what came over me to just dump it. Nowadays, it's actually rare right now.
3/4 of the collector's market is people rebuying stuff from their childhood. So you're not alone there.
Yeah. That's an ongoing thing, man. I remember the 80s. I remember those guys trying to get their stuff from the 60s and the 50s. And then when I was married the first time around, I had a father-in-law who was talking about the tin toys of the 40s and 50s and stuff, you know. And then Mountain Empire Comics in the 90s, he used to have he was right on State Street. And this is when, you know, things were good and they stayed busy and all that stuff. He found a whole bunch of Western comics from the 50s that I was like, he'll never unload those. And he put them in the window. Not 10 minutes later, 3 or 4 old men came by and bought them all up. I want my Gene Autry, you know.
Yeah.
So I think the last time you can unload Western books were in the 90s. You know,
I was so glad that Walmart brought back that Trendmasters Robbie the Robot figure too.
I have that and the Iron Giant here. I think you have them too. We talked about that.
Damn right I do.
Yeah. Yeah, $20. I mean,
yes,
that's excellent considering they do stuff. You know, I got to take mine out of the box. I'm going to have to do it. I got the Iron Giant over there just staring at me with Robbie. So I love my apes. So I found my Cinescape from 2001 before I saw the Tim Burton movie. The Tim Burton Planet of the Apes movie, I was watching it and I was like trying to be real supportive. I went to a midnight showing of it. And I was like, this is beautiful. It looks beautiful, but it's one of those movies, just put it on the background and play some music over it and just look at it. It was so bad.
I can think of a few movies like that.
But I was happy to see this, and I hate that it's bent a little bit. I need to frame it. But I was one of the guys that I still like the Bryan Singer X-Men movies. There's like one or two that are bad, I think. And I know they get a lot of dump stuff, but it was amazing me to see these villains on a real magazine. You know what I mean?
Well,
they did it. I
like Rebecca Romaine wearing nothing but blue paint, but other than that.
Imagine that.
Yeah, I was like, who's this Jennifer Lawrence chick trying to replace her? It can't be done, and then all of a sudden they have her sticking her foot on, doing a standing split while she puts her foot on a guy's throat. And I've caught myself being a gentleman and turning my head.
Tim, you remember a little bit earlier you said that you found a bunch of magazines that you forgot about?
That's what I'm going through, yeah.
I was looking just through the door to my library room the other day, and it just dawned on me, it's like, I have too much stuff.
Yeah.
I have to do a purge of all this stuff I'm never going to look at again.
You'll end up like Paolo, wanting back your mini comics and giveaways that you got rid of when you were 13.
I have a few mini comics. I don't have a whole bunch.
I'll tell you what I wished I had kept, but I mean, I understand why I got rid of them, and I'm sure I could do a Google search and find what they are because I barely remember them anyway. But it was the flexi discs that used to come on cereal boxes that you could pull off and play. The problem was they were so thin and they didn't have a cover and they were already on the shelves that they scratched real easy.
Yeah,
right.
That's why I barely remember.
When you would put them on the turntable, they had the tendency to slip.
Yeah. That's it. You were there.
Flexi discs weren't technology that was made to stand the test of time.
Not really.
I have two flexi discs from two Tim Truman comics. The Prowler.
Oh, I remember those.
I
still have mine in the comics.
Yeah, I was going to say mine's still bound into the comic. I never took it out.
Yeah, I ended up. I mean, I found them in dollar boxes when I decided I want one to stay in the comic. So I have two of each. One.
I don't think I ever got it, but when Nexus was in a black and white magazine. I think issue 3 had a flexi disc in it that read along with the comic.
Oh, that's cool.
And I remember always seeing it at my comic. That was the first issue of Nexus I ever saw. And then I started buying it when the Color Nexus came out. And then then they put out a compilation of the first 3 Nexus black and whites in like a trade paperback graphic novel sort of format.
Going off on a tangent.
And I got those, but I never got that third issue by itself.
All right. Going off on a tangent, a couple of years ago, Dark Horse had solicited the Nexus comic strip as an absolute edition. They canceled it. Okay. So just a few days ago, Steve Rude started a new Kickstarter for that as a hardcover.
Yeah.
His Kickstarter was funded in less than a minute.
Yeah, right. I was one of those people.
Howler was last week before the show. Tim was pledging it.
But
that's my first Kickstarter was that one and the one that Dave Sims doing with Spawn number 10. Redrawing it or whatever he's doing.
Which cover did you get? The one you said.
I did exactly what I knew. I knew as soon as I picked, I would know what I wanted. I got the one where they're walking down the hallway and they got all the arms of the heroes standing out.
Okay, yes.
And as soon as I did it, I woke up the next day, and it was so odd, man, because believe it or not, I do not eat, sleep, and breathe comics. Don't get me wrong. But I actually woke up the next morning and said I should have got the one that was a tribute to Cerebus number 26 that started High Society. I was like, yeah, I got the wrong one.
You might be able to change it.
I probably could, but I don't want to mess with it because he's already put out something like 19 updates. They're meeting all the I can't remember what they're called, but every time they reach a certain amount of money,
it's called a stretch goal.
Yeah, the stretch goal. He's the stretch goals are they're left and right. These stretch goals are getting open, and so far they're all for the hardcover. I got the trade paperback. I mean, don't get me wrong, but I just can't imagine Spawn number 10. Well, I mean, maybe I'm getting confused because I'm following two of them.
Nexus comic strips is what you're talking about.
The Nexus one and stuff like that. So yeah, this is my first time doing a Kickstarter, so I'm not really wanting to put a whole bunch of money in case these things end up coming out late. I've heard the nightmares, So real quick, Paul, did you have Thundar?
Not on Portuguese television. I saw Thundar on Cartoon Network. We had it on satellite, but I was a teenager by then. And at that stage, it was the second half of the 90s, mid-90s, second half of the 90s. The Hanna-Barbera superheroes were not really getting rerun much. So even the original Johnny Quest took a backseat to the new adventures. So I wasn't.
Ouch.
Yeah.
In 2009, when I moved to Roanoke, I actually lived across the road from a Kroger and a Big Lots and a Blockbuster. Go figure, And I turned around and Big Lots actually had all this Hanna-Barbera cartoon sets for $3 a piece. But they also had Tales from the Crypt for $3 a piece. So guess which ones I went for? I just ordered off of about 2 weeks ago. They had like this Amazon Day sale. I don't know what it was going on.
All right.
But I got my wife to order me the Herculoids complete set, and I'm starting to be wary because it's taken them 2 weeks to get it to me, and I'm thinking it's not the original set. I think they're burning them and they're making it look like the exact real.
All those titles from Warner Brothers come from the archive, and they do burn them to order.
Okay, so I'm as long as it's a real.
It's a legitimate set. It's just they do burn them to order. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, normally I'd go Space Ghost. You know what I mean? But I had that set in the 2000s, and
I still need to get that Space Ghost.
But the Herculoids, man, was the one that. I mean, if anybody's watched the Herculoids, I just thought that was the stuff.
It's funny mentioning Thundar. A couple years ago or so, I was watching Thundar with a guy I used to work with. And he'd never seen Thundar before. And within the first 2 minutes, we're watching the opening scene. He said, that looks a little bit like Jack Kirby. And I looked and said, funny you should mention that.
Thundar was the show that made me a Kirby fan. Like, I stopped being scared of his stuff. But funnily enough, and this is going to sound so bad, there's an episode where there's a village. And I think Gemini is the bad guy. Right. But there's a village of little people, dwarves, if you will. I'll be nice, right? And their costume designs had like the Jack Kirby squiggly lines and stuff. And I was looking real close. And then for the next 2 or 3 weeks, I would get up on the TV. I'm 7 years old now. And I'm sitting there and I'm squinting real hard. And I'm trying to watch the credits to see if I can see that Jack Kirby name, and all this stuff. I'm like, I was like, it's got to be him. It's got to be him.
I started trying to pay attention to the end credits on some cartoons because of when I watched the Centurions, I saw designs by Jack Kirby and Gil Kane. Oh, okay. So I started looking to see if I could find somebody, but it was really rare to find a comic book person.
Yeah, my brother had the Centurion toys, and he also had the real Voltron toys. He lived with his grandparents, and he got the good toys. So he would play with them for a few weeks. You could look at them, and then they would be up in the attic stored.
Talking about credits at the end of cartoons. If you have the DVD version of the Johnny Quest set, all the credits at the end are wrong because they're actually just copy and pastes.
No,
in the Blu-ray version, they corrected it.
After Christmas, I'm going to go ahead and get the Blu-ray. I'm just going to get the Blu-ray. I'm going to do it.
Do you want to hear a sad story about DV credits? I don't know if I've ever told this one here.
Sure. How sad is it? Because I'm kind of emotional today there, Jared.
Must be, I don't know, it was in the mid to early I think it was the early 2000s. I went over to my cousin's for a Labor Day picnic. And I met one of their friends there, a woman whose name was Anne Bryant. And it turns out she did the music for G.I. Joe and the Transformers.
Nice.
Classical musician. She did the music for them. But they had just released the DVDs of them, and she got no money. And she saw in the credits that there was all these people that had her credits. So of course she did some research, looked it up, did some legal, and found out all of the producer's friends got the music credits and therefore the royalties from the DVDs. So she of course sued them,
Right.
to try and get her money. But when you sue a big any big movie conglomerate, any TV conglomerate, you're in trouble. Especially since it had been sold a couple of times. Transformers and they'd been, and so it was, and she was even telling me the story about how she had all her paperwork still. So like she showed up in court. First, it's hard to find an entertainment lawyer because what all the big companies do is they hire the entertainment lawyers for some small job, and then you can't hire them because of a conflict of interest.
Right.
So if you want to sue Sony Music, you're in trouble. And so then she at this time, she was like in the early 2000s, she was feeling pretty confident because, like I said she had gone into, and like I think it even may have been Sony she was suing at the time. And their lawyers, of course, just delay and delay and delay. They're hoping you run out of money.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was like, and the other lawyers were like, well, if you don't have paperwork, and her lawyer was like, well, we have all this paperwork. And they were like, oh, because musicians usually don't save their paperwork. But of course, then they delayed and delayed and delayed. And then I probably didn't see her for another 5 years at my cousin's wedding. And 5 years later, she was like, it's still going on. There's no end in sight to this.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then I saw her maybe 5 years after that, 10 years from the original meeting. And she was like, they beat me. There's like nothing. She like found out all sorts of crazy stuff. Like her lawyer was actually working for the other side. So she had to fire her own lawyer.
Oh,
and they just refused. They just stretched it out for a decade, refused to ever pay her. And she was like, I don't think I'll ever see any money.
Man,
And this is,
awful.
And it's just crazy. And she also found out, do you remember when Simon and Schuster, this is like once again, it's the early 2000s. And I think it was Simon and Schuster or Kirby and Simon. I forget which one set of lawyer. I think it was, he was representing one of those old comic guys fighting the media company.
You might say Siegel and Simon.
What was that?
Jerry Siegel and Joe Simon.
Siegel and Schuster.
It was either Siegel or Schuster or Simon and Kirby.
Yeah.
One of those four had a lawyer.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah.
One. And I just and this was right after she told me something similar. It's like he had been fighting for them for a while, and you would always see him in the news giving a little press conference here or there. He showed up in the news, giving his last press conference with like a black eye. And he was like, I'm quitting this case. They beat me up.
Oh, my God.
And he quit the case.
Wow.
And then I found out that from listening to Ann tell her stories that a lot of the entertainment industry is mobbed up. Besides being corporate.
Here's what's sort of funny about you saying that. That's one of the, like, it's the worst kept secret ever. But when you hear it, oh, they're all mobbed up. You think it's just sort of a.
And you're like, how can that be?
Yeah.
How can Joe Simon's lawyer show up to a press conference with a black eye and say, I'm quitting, and no one do anything, and nothing happens? It's just like, whoa.
I remember that Joe Schuster's family's lawyer was trying to get himself some sort of producer credit with Warner, in order to because at the time the courts had decided that because of the old copyright extensions, the creators were actually allowed to get their copyrights returned after 56 years. But Joe Schuster's family's lawyer was trying to use it as a springboard to get into Hollywood.
Man.
I remember reading an interview with Tony Iommi from Black Sabbath several years ago, and the interviewer asked him, said, "What advice would you give somebody that's going to start to form a band?" And the first words he said were, "Get a lawyer."
It's funny, when I was talking to Ann, she was also not a very public person. She was kind of reserved. And I was like, the only thing you can do is go on Twitter. Public shame is the only thing you can do against these big companies because they don't care.
Yeah.
And if you want it, it's the only thing that moves them.
The last thing I heard like this that really blew up, and as in like I had people messaging me the article and stuff, mad as hell about it stuff. Nelson, the guy who did the I don't know, the Alien Dark Horse Aliens covers.
It's Mark A. Nelson.
Yeah, Mark A. Nelson. I always known him just as Nelson. It's kind of funny for me to hear his first name.
Nelson.
You're talking about two different people.
Right.
There's the guy you know only as Nelson DeCastro.
Yeah. When Nelson started doing inks over John Byrne, that's when I found out they were two different people. I mean, so yeah, technically, for years,
that's Nelson
I thought it was
DeCastro.
the same dude. Yeah.
I know him from my Marvel days.
Yeah. When he pissed off John Byrne because he was correcting his anatomy, I was like, oh, this is a different dude. Yeah.
They told him to do that.
Did they?
Yes. the editor told them to do that.
Nice.
He didn't necessarily want to, but the editorial wanted to modernize John Byrne. That's why they asked Nelson to do that. And of course, John Byrne hated Nelson for it because that's the way it goes. You can't hating the guy who actually gives you the work isn't easy. So it's easier to hate the guy who they hired to do the work.
That was actually the last big John Byrne scuffle that I paid attention to. You know what I mean? Like I was like, oh man.
You were talking about that Alien reprint thing from Marvel.
Dave
Dorman just yesterday stated he was kind of sad or mad because Marvel didn't ask him to do any cover work for that.
Well, I'll tell you what, let's clarify it for people who watch this and don't know what we're talking about. Disney bought up Fox. Fox has Aliens. Dark Horse, had the license and, they did the comics. And now that Marvel is putting it together, they're not giving any royalties to Nelson, the Mark Nelson dude.
Right. And to be fair, Dark Horse didn't give any royalties to any of the that's the way movie and TV licenses work. When you buy that movie or TV license, unlike other comics, you pay no royalties to the artists. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm just real thankful that I've got a box up here of just movie stuff, like just movie comics and stuff, and I'm so glad that my Blade Runner has been caught up in any controversy. That would just hurt my feelings.
Oh, it's just a matter of time.
Sequential Geek here is asking about the rights. If anybody knows who currently owns the TV rights to The Crow. Because but it's something that happens. Those movie companies, they get if they close the doors, they get bought up by a bigger one, and there's concentration of properties in 2 or 3 companies.
And also, like that's why Spider-Man movie couldn't be made for so many years. Nobody knew who owned the rights because the company who made them went out of business. They may have sold them before they went out of business, but then someone bought them in bankruptcy. But did they buy them or did the other company have them? Blah, blah, blah.
The first time I heard about a Spider-Man movie was like in 1988. There was they said the budget. The budget in 1988 they wanted to have for Spider-Man was $5 million, which at the time would probably get you Ed Wood 4. Type. Or Ed Wood type holding up the spaceships with visible lines.
Oh, I can just see the scene done Ed Wood style where Spider-Man's fighting Dr. Octopus, like the octopus scene in Ed Wood. That would be hysterical.
And like a marionette puppet strings on all his arms.
Right.
See, if I was going to do a movie that cheap, I'd have everybody know they're in a movie. I'd make it meta. You know what I mean? So you can laugh at it with them while they're doing this. Like they can just kind of acknowledge it to the crowd with a wink. Like, I mean, the vision's in my head. It's a great movie. I'm telling you.
Well, who wants to see the comics I got this week?
Cool.
New Savage Dragon was out. Well, what was cool about this too is like the last issue was the comic strip issue, and which was really cool because it was real well done. Each double page spread was a new comic book, and each one was kind of individual, but it turned out each one was also in continuity, because it's like there were his little his youngest, I think it was his youngest daughter, I'm not even sure, the second youngest or youngest daughter had like a Calvin and Hobbes strip. So she was like fighting with this tiger in the strip. And then this issue, she meets the tiger again outside her house and invites him to her birthday party. So it's like the tiger is a character now. And then there was another one, the one woman, I forget her name, Angel, was in the Kathy strip. And her mother was like, have you put on weight? And she's like, oh, no, I fit in my costume fine. And she fits in her costume, and she's overhanging it. And the mother's like, So Angel shows up in this issue, and she's overweight.
That's every Kathy strip you've ever seen.
See, that's why I don't like the Kathy strip. That's in every, yeah.
There are 3 Kathy strips.
Once again, you're going to make me defend Kathy. The reason I like Kathy was because it was the only voice of a single woman on the whole comic strip. Every other woman was a mother or a mother or a grandmother. There were absolutely not a single woman on the whole comic.
But you can reduce it down to 3 strips. It's I'm fat, I can't fit into a bathing suit, or I can't find one that I like.
For 40 years,
or my mother is trying to set me up on a blind date.
What strip can't you do that to? Good grief.
For 40
you
years.
Can get every
I never saw Charlie Brown trying to set you into a bathing suit.
You can diminish anything you want. You give me anything and I can diminish it. It doesn't matter.
We will not laugh at peanuts on this channel, sir.
I know. I'm just saying something as great as peanuts. You can do. Spider-Man is just thwip. You know, that's how you diminish anything.
That's Spider-Man comic strip.
Oh no, I wrenched my arm. I mean, come on. It's easy to diminish stuff.
I'm actually with you on that Spider-Man comic strip. I cannot believe how long it lasted. It was not in the newspapers around here. And
I finally ended.
Yeah, it ended.
When Stan Lee died. Not that he was actually writing it. Yeah, because it was in comic. They used to run it in Comic Shop Weekly. And it was still being run out of Stan Lee's office. Not that Stan was actually writing it. I think his brother, Larry Lieber, was writing it, and someone else. But it was still run out of Stan's office. And until Stan died, and only when Stan died did they finally cancel it.
Was Stan Sakai still lettering it at the point?
No, I don't think. Yeah, I think Janice Chiang was lettering it.
Just wondered. Gotcha.
Big Girls 3. This one has been good. Jason Howard. Giant Monsters. But like I've liked each issue. It's gotten because the story has gotten richer as it's gone on. It's not just giant monsters fighting each other. It's giant monsters fighting each other with some humanity to it.
Nice.
But Jason Howard does a nice job with that one. And then here's one that I'm surprised is still around. We've got Sarah and the Royal Stars, number 8. Number 8. Now, what's funny is this is a Vault comic, and I think this and maybe 2 other Vault comics went on my pull list about the same time, sometime last year, and the other 2 lasted 4 or 5 issues and were just gone. So far, this one's lasted 8, and I'm like, why? I mean, I'm sure this is selling no more than the other ones. Did they just plan on having 4 or 5 issues of the other ones, and they planned on having 2 trades of it?
I'm saying what it is fake it till you make it. Dress for the job you want, sir.
That could be it. It's a fine comic. It's sort of a fantasy comic. I'd call it kind of young adult, but there's nudity in some issues.
Is it Game of Thrones like?
No, not really. It's more they're on a quest to save their kingdom kind of thing, the whole planet. But it's nicely done. But I'm kind of like, why is this one still going? I mean, how many copies can a Vault comic be selling? Does that no one see unless you have Sarah and the Royal Stars number 8 on your pull list, you'll never see it.
See, you're making me want to go back and get my Castle Waiting out if I have any left. Yeah.
I'd love to see New Castle Waiting, but it doesn't look like it's going to happen anytime soon.
And the next one I bought purely for nostalgia and the cover. And that's Madam Satan one shot. Archie Comics presents Madam Satan.
Oh my god. We're also getting new Rob. We're also getting new Rob Zombie music in the next 24 hours.
They'll rack those right up front at the grocery line, along with a little Archie digest there.
And this just reminded me of Marvel Comics in the 70s when they were doing, when they would put out a Son of Satan, which they would never do now. And I'm like, the only one putting out a Madam Satan comic in 2020 is Archie Comics.
That's hilarious.
And the cover's really nice, and the inside art is pretty good too. Let me give you a quick look at, and the story was all right.
I tell you what, the last 10 years at Archie, they've done some really good stuff that's just blown me away.
Look at this blood and gore where she rips out this woman's heart.
Madam Satan versus Sabrina the Teenage Witch coming to you next Halloween. That's coming. Yeah. I can see it.
I saw a graphic.
She's a Sabrina villain.
I saw a graphic just the other day that pointed out, and it never dawned on me until I saw it, and it was blatantly obvious that visually Casper is just Richie Rich with all the skin taken off.
Yeah,
I remember that since I was a kid. I
was like, yeah, you're right on the spot. He sure is.
Yeah, I remember that when I was a kid. That was getting talked about. I mean, I never. Yeah, I like the idea of the poor little rich boy dying and becoming Casper.
Yeah, he was probably kidnapped, and his parents refused to pay the ransom.
That's it. Yeah. Everybody comes up with the same scenarios. It was a kidnapping. They wanted the money. It's always something like that. That's
Sequential Geek says maybe the creators of Sarah did most of their work ahead of time. That could have been it. They could just want to get 8 issues out, so they're not making any money off it. I don't know.
Yeah, I've looked up the numbers on Comic-Con. They because the stuff that's coming out this year, because of all the madness with the distribution and COVID, they don't have numbers for number 7, but they have numbers for number 2 here, and number 2 sold 2,500 copies.
Yeah, that's nothing. You can't make a living on 2,500 copies.
Yeah, so that was number 2, so it's probably on 1,000 and something.
Yeah,
that's a lot of work.
Maybe did you see the graphic novel sales are up? News.
Yeah.
What's crazy is I was reading. I dug into the article a little more. And graphic novel sales are up. Unfortunately, superhero like Marvel and DC sales are down. They're actually down. But all the sales going up are from manga and one comic. It's just like one, the
right?
Captain Underpants guy.
Yeah.
And it was just like his new graphic novel that came out in September sold over 500,000 copies.
Mm-hmm.
No U.S. publisher right now knows how to sell to the mainstream market.
Right.
Well, not only do they not know, they probably don't care.
Well, no, no, they care. They want to sell. It's not as easy as all that. Keep in mind that one book sold 500,000 copies. We don't see the 27 books that sell 3,000 copies.
Right.
That was just told to me by somebody who works in the book business.
Sure, because that's normal.
I know, but I'm just saying, if you're not in the book business, if you're not in that book, if you're coming into the book business, you're not going to sell the 500,000 copy. You're going to sell the 2,700 copies, and that's going to make you not want to go in the book business, because when you're in the book business, everything is returnable. So you print up 50,000 copies. You're like, woohoo, 50,000 copies. You only sell 5,000 copies, and then you have to give them their money back for 45,000 copies. That puts more book publishers out of business.
I just saw an article the other day, and this I think was linked to the fact that one of the 2 distributors for DC is going bye-bye.
Yeah, I just saw that. They were like, no.
I think it was DC that's making a certain percentage of their newer books returnable for a certain amount of time.
They do that. And individual companies do that. I can always tell because Roy at my local comic shop orders a whole bunch of whatever it is that's returnable. Just because why not? You can return them. And often like Dynamite does that. Who's the other one? Besides the other? Their names one in my head.
IDW, Boom.
IDW does that.
Yeah.
I think Boom may even do that, or actually Boom has just been booming with first issues. I think, but sometimes I can't tell because there's occasionally my local comic shop is small. Hello, Larasa. My local comic shop is small. It's not a big shop.
Hey,
and sometimes. Like the one I got last week, Dynamite, the new Dynamite one, which I liked. I put on it's a 5-issue mini, but he must have had issue 1. He must have had 40 copies out of issue 1. Now normally I would expect to see maybe 5 or 6 shelf copies of that, but it's either A, returnable, or B, sometimes he has some of his customers want the 1 in 25 variants.
So they'll do it to hit a certain minimum.
Yep.
So, and they'll pay for what if it costs him 20, they'll basically pay for all 25 issues to get that 1 in 25 variant. That's why they're so much more expensive.
Yes.
But then he'll have 25 issues he can't sell. He's even told them, listen, you want the 25 issues? And they're like, no, they don't want the 25 issues. So that's why he'll have 25 issues of something on the shelf. Right. So I'm not sure if like that Dynamite was returnable or somebody ordered a special cover. It's either one of those two things. That's the only reason he'd have 40 copies of that on the shelf.
Right.
And I saw something like I think I was saying I try not to check out the comic book news too much because it just amazes me how much of it just sort of runs all over me sometimes. But
there's too much bad news.
Well,
yeah. Speaking of that, I heard a vicious rumor the other day that there was another villain in the Batman universe besides the Joker.
It was amazing. But I heard something's going on with DC. You guys will probably already know about this. This is probably old news to people, but I didn't read the entire article. I kind of skimmed it, but I'm surprised they could crack what DC is selling because it seems like they're changing the way you order. If you order from them, you got to have a $500 minimum. And I just can't see the comic book shops that are left over out there buying $500 worth of comics a month just from DC,
Right.
No, I don't think that'd be a hard threshold to reach when you think about it. If your shop,
considering the amount of books they have coming out now, it may make it harder.
And how expensive they are.
Yeah, well, okay. So the shops get what 60% off?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
sometimes
say 50% off just to make the math.
Okay, so $500 would be $2 comics. 200 individual issues.
No, you have to order $500 worth of stuff from them. So you're ordering $1,000.
But it's $500. It's not $500 retail price.
Right. It's $500 to them.
Right. So you're talking about like $1,000 retail.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if they're paying $2 a book, it's not that hard to get to 200 to 300 individual issues. But that's why a lot of shops went out of business. Have you guys ever read Chuck Rosansky's article about the 90s and how he thinks there wasn't actually a speculator bubble?
Chuck has some interesting viewpoints sometimes. I like some of the things he says, and sometimes I wonder if Chuck comes from an interesting perspective because the area he lives in Denver there.
Hey guys, tell everybody who Chuck is.
Chuck Rosansky. Go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, he owns Mile High Comics.
Right. And if you go to Mile High Comics, if you go to Mile High Comics on the homepage, you'll have like these. I don't know if you call them editorials, but
Yeah, they're just like blogs he writes. The stuff he writes about, and his voice is big in comicdom because Mile High Comics buys a lot of new comics, though less than they did. But anyway, he was saying that there really weren't as many speculators as people think in the early 90s
I didn't think there were. I thought that most people thought they were making money off of it, but they just didn't know what they were buying. And after a while,
a lot of people think people from outside the industry came inside the industry to buy lots of first issues and stuff, and that's not really what.
Right.
No, those are called the speculators.
Right.
And he was saying
speculators.
That I'm not talking you and me. I'm not talking you and me buying an extra copy or 10. Mm-hmm. What are you showing us?
Well, I was getting ready to say, I don't think this person is watching the show, but it's just amazing. I just got this message to me. By the way, people, anybody's got Facebook and Instagram, you better check your messenger. Mine didn't work for 3 days because they merged them, and I had to accept the merger. That's why I didn't get anybody's messages since Wednesday. He says, well, the plot thickens. DC's new distributor. This came at 6:56 p.m. my time, all right?
Right.
But that's what's so funny. The plot thickens. DC's new distributors are going in different directions. UCS will be servicing stores that aren't comic shops, and Lunar will solely be responsible for that, while not servicing many online retailers. USC makes sense since it operated by Midtown Comics. That might seem as a conflict of interest. Lunar, however, is operated by DCBS, an online retailer. This means eBay and online comic book clubs where fans combine their money to get books at retailer cost will be left out. Naturally, this move favors DCBS. Shady shit, brother. Does this mean that the retailers who can't afford $125 a week, $500 a month minimum order might buy smaller amounts of DC books directly from DCBS for a smaller discount? Basically, what that's going on is that people are already looking around to find cheaper ways to get new books without going through the retailers. That means there's going to be people who are going to buy more than $500 a month, and they're going to start charging people through them on the download to have their new DC books on the shelves. It's already getting shady.
That was like the old days when there were regional sub-distributors.
Yeah.
And that also ties into the Chuck Rosansky thing I was just saying, because he was saying instead of speculators, what it was there was competition among the comics distributors. This was before Diamond owned everything.
Oh, yeah.
And they gave such easy terms and credit. Where remember you just said that you needed a $500 minimum. The minimum was so low that basically anybody could be a comic shop.
Yeah.
So many people opened comic shops in their garages and stuff, and ordered a whole bunch of stuff, but could never actually sell it.
You see these guys at flea markets around here in the 90s and 2000s. I saw a few over the last couple of years in the early 2000 teens that were doing that. They would rent out a little spot about as big as my room, and they act like they were a comic book shop.
Yeah. Right. And you look in their back issue box. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, then what happened was, thank you for the breaking news, Hal. Then what happened was when Diamond got the monopoly, they eventually raised the threshold that you had to spend, and that put all of those guys out of business. Your easy credit was gone, and all of that other stuff was out. Matter of fact, credit isn't easy anymore at all. There was, I think 2 or 3 years ago, a comic shop opened up in my town, which I never even got to see. It closed stuff because, I have my comic shop. There's a couple towns over that I always go to. And since he was a new comic shop, he had no credit with Diamond and had to pay for all his comics up front.
Ouch.
With cash. Probably one of the reasons he didn't last very long. But before Diamond had the monopoly, like I said, all these distributors would give you easy credit, and you could order a low amount. So that's why so many people were running. So Chuck Rosansky was saying it wasn't really speculators; it was all these small shops buying tons of comics on cheap credit to sell. Which, of course, they never got to sell.
I can see that, but one thing that happened is that when 1996 came around, the number of shops that were left were less than the ones that existed before the death of Superman.
Yeah.
The thing
so there was an actual crash.
That's when Mile High Comics changed their. That was the crash. Not Mile High Comics. Diamond Distributors said, "Sorry, all you guys aren't comic shops. No credit," and that's when all the comics. That's when 1,000 comic shops went out of business.
That got rid of actual legitimate comic shops.
Oh, it did. It did. It got rid of small shops, but it got rid of that. But that was actually before. That was like a second crash. There was they were slowly whittled away as the distributors left, and there was no more distributors, and there was no more easy credit. Yeah. As soon as Marvel went
Heroes World,
with Heroes World, their own distributor, that's when all those little shops started to crash, and all those people who were buying comics and selling them out of their garage, they can no longer get Marvel comics. So
yeah, when Capital City went out of business, it was similar there too.
Yeah. The thing about Chuck, though, that gets me is that he's somebody to be listened to. That's not what I'm saying. I mean, he's credible. But what I've noticed over the years with Chuck is that he's neither right nor wrong. It's just that
he's got a point of view.
This is his point of view, and sometimes he comes off like his point of view is the end all be all. He kind of forgets. There's other wheels. You get what I'm saying?
That's your own inferiority complex. Don't worry about that.
He has an agenda. I always imagine that he is trying to profit. Yeah, but he's definitely trying to profit from everything he says. It's directed.
Whenever I hear someone say though that they think their opinion is the end all be all, I'm like, no, they don't. They're just telling you their opinion. That there's something in you that's taking it like that.
There's a couple people I would say that may be different.
There are, but they're rare. I rarely get that feeling.
Well, I think Paolo nailed it, because when he said that, what he said about the profiting and directing it, I can't think of how many of those blogs I've read where he was like, and by the way, check out our sale or check out.
Well, that's what they're for. They're selling you comics.
No, I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying.
Yeah, but
I'm
also
saying
remember that he criticized DC for leaving Diamond.
Yeah.
And then he said, "Oh, I'm not buying any any DC collections from Diamond."
Yeah.
Well, what is it?
That's just business. Business people change their minds as the money changes.
Would any of us
One day he's not buying this, the price lowers by 75%. The next day he's buying that.
Would any of us like to take a bet right now that DC will be back with Diamond within a year?
Who knows? I don't know.
I don't know, man.
Don't know.
Why wouldn't they be? I don't know. They're trying to move stuff around.
Sure.
I don't know. I'm also kind of expecting Steve Jeppy to retire one of these days. He's not getting any younger.
Yeah, and his passion for comics really is kept. I mean, he's freaking made a fortune doing it too.
Well, when you're the only game in town, it makes it a little bit easier.
Yeah,
but I do believe that Steve Jeppy cares enough about comics to keep the business going, and whoever buys Diamond after he retires, it's going to be a corporate entity, and that means
they might not care as much about comics.
Jeppy is smart because he's got his iron in a lot of other fires besides just comics too. Oh.
Well, when you're rich, that's what you do.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I'd like to try that and see how it works.
At the end of the day, comics. I'm reading Sequential Geek here. At the end of the day, comics are sold to the direct market shops, not to actual people, consumers. No,
no.
That's changing.
No, that's not the issue. The comic shop owners, they have to guess what their customers want, but they don't order comics just to order them.
I think he's talking about what we were talking about before, the speculators thing, where in the 90s they were selling. They were actually selling. Direct market was actually selling books to actual people rather than just comic shops. And like that thing that Howler Mouse just told us, that collective of people who got together to set themselves up as a comic shop so they could buy their own comics.
And that's a type of speculator. It's just not the traditional definition of speculator we're used to.
That's not really a speculator, is what Chuck Rosansky was saying. in his article about how the 90s, he didn't think there was really that big a speculation bubble. It was all these shops, all these small seat of your pants shops buying comics.
Right.
Not speculators from, Wall Street coming in and
Not from
buying
outside of the market.
1,000 copies of Sleepwalker #1.
But there were, sure, there were comics that were selling stupid numbers. When Bob Bierbaum always talks about it, when Bierbaum usually talks about speculating in the 70s, like he did.
That's a different thing.
Yeah, but that was directed. I think people they noticed market trends in ways that people in the 90s couldn't.
Right. And also,
so there were people who were buying stuff willy-nilly, not knowing exactly what they were buying. Those people did exist.
What Robert Birnbaum used to do, he said, was they would, and they could move the market this way because they could go in and get 100, and they would go right to the newsstand distributor who would sell them stuff, out of the back of the truck half the time too, which is why DC and Marvel never, especially DC, never saw the sales. They would go in and buy, and if an issue of Conan was a quarter, it would cost you, get 100 copies, it cost you $25. So, and that's full price. So they would spend like $150 and get 1,000 issues of Conan, and then sell them at cons and things. And he said all it took was like 100 to 500 people doing that, and that's 100,000 copies.
Yeah.
And that's what they were doing all the time, and that's where those were speculators.
Well, there was a lot of what's the word I'm looking for? I can't think of the word. It's going to drive me crazy.
Scott lost his words.
Yeah, Scott lost his word. There was a lot of fighting and competition between sub distributors back then, just in northern and southern California, which are almost two distinct different markets.
Mm-hmm. This is the night we should have a ticker tape run across the bottom of this, because when I take that phone call real quick.
Breaking news.
I have 6 people, and judging by how many people are watching this and is in the chat, it's not. I don't think it's any of them, but 6 people sent me a link to a Bleeding Cool news article about Lunar and the eBay stores and DC Comics and all that stuff. I mean, this should be like a live thing now. I'm going to have to get a screen behind me and a ticker tape. Be like news. Let's go ahead.
Sequential Geek figures Diamond said back in March, April that they're going to start being back issue source like Rosansky. I don't know if Diamond's really going to be a back issue. They just might warehouse more comics. I don't know how.
Yeah, they may subcontract it out.
Yeah. But today, most comics are sold to direct market shops. Yeah, former Marvel and DC are made to be sold into the shops. Yeah, they can't return them. There's no buyback program. We are secondary. No, we're primary.
Yeah, the thing is, the shops make decisions trying to guess if we're going after something.
Right.
If we don't
2
buy
2 or 3 months in advance.
Yeah. If we don't buy it, they go out of business. They're stuck with product they can't move. So the notion that the shops make the decision, it's ludicrous.
They make the decision based on what they sold last month.
Yeah. And very few know how to anticipate market trends. And
there's no way to.
Look, I miss the days when everybody could get a #1, but you had to look out for that #2 because sales were going to drop.
Oh, do you know it? I just saw this. I just read this I forgot about this. Remember, I've been talking about Walking Dead Weekly.
Oh no, and the reprint of the
reprint. I think that was the one that said that they were holding off on #2 for like a month or so, so comic shops could gauge reorders to see how much they sold of the first issue and gauge their orders on #2. So
now you're talking to me, because The game
because usually comic shops are ordering issue 3 before issue 1 has hit the stands, and that makes it tough.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah, I love it.
Well, one of the things that drives me nuts, and it's not the business's fault, okay, but local stores will not buy anything beforehand that they're not guaranteed will sell. So if I'm wanting to check out a smaller press book that's not from the big two, they're almost impossible to find anymore.
Yeah, that's how it works. You got to know that. That's why if you're a comic fan, you pre-order stuff. You know, small press stuff is small press.
Right.
It's hard to find.
The Last Ronin, number 1. I want to do some shout outs here in a minute with some people. It's popping up in the chat. Not to remember, but Last Ronin, number 1. Again, you know, I'm the guy who completely says I skim the articles. I read, you know, I just move on, you know. But like I pre-ordered The Last Ronin, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, The Last Ronin, a storyline left over from the 80s when they were going, where can we take the Turtles?
I pre-ordered the first issue.
Well, supposedly what I skimmed, and again, you know, people who are more on the know on this and stuff, but I watched it. I watched the the San Diego Comic-Con live shows are on YouTube where he accidentally revealed that the same artist didn't stay on the series, right? Well, what's happened now is that number 1, that nobody ordered. Apparently, there was 130,000 more orders for that book, 130,000 more books ordered than what they printed. That before number 1 even hit the stands, if it's even hit the stands, they're already going to price it at $50. This is what's important to pre-order, because I have been hit with the fact that I walked into a comic book shop the same day, and if a book was on eBay for $50, they were wanting to charge me more. I think it was like the debut of the Red Goblin and Amazing Spider-Man was the last time that happened. That, you know,
one thing that I think is going to happen, because of the number of people interested, the shops are going to order a second printing, and now all of a sudden people want to know the number 1, but they won't want a second printing.
No. It's not even that they won't want. It's people. When people walk into a shop, they want it now. Not in 2 or 4 weeks. So when the second printings come out, it's like all those people who are looking for it are gone. Like I always tell my like, you know, I have some friends who are longtime comic book people, but they don't really go to the comic shop anymore. And if a comic book makes the news, it's too late. You're not going to get it. And they're always like, "Oh, I went in there looking for this comic, and they're all sold out." I'm like, you know how? I'm like, you're not 17. You know how comic books work. If you hear about it in the news, it's sold out.
Well, the other thing is that there's a thing in the comic book shops. I don't know if we've discussed it already, but I'm positive I was talking to Tim Anderson about this. Tim Anderson is highly active in like Facebook groups with comics and stuff, and he's got it down pat. That's his world. But there was one guy that came up, but we started seeing things. I can think of 2 shops off the top of my head. He called me up because he said this would have been a move I made, because we already had the talk the first time we ran across it. But shops won't price their books. They'll put a sign up that explains that due to how comics fluctuate in price, they're going to look it up before you go up there, right? There's a place in Tazewell I won't go to anymore because he did that. He did that to me.
I was getting ready to say, I see a sign like that, I may just walk back out.
Well, what this guy did is that he did something to his phone to where he made it was going to ring at a certain time. So he went up there with his stack of books, and the guy was going to look them up, and his phone rung, and he told the guy, "I got to take this call. I'll be standing right over here. You keep just ringing them up." So he was walking back and forth in front of the shop, looking at the guy and everything like that. And then right when he got to the last book, he put his phone down and walked off. And his attitude is, "If you're going to waste my time, I'm going to waste your time." So yeah, I was like, yeah, that sounds like something I'd do. But I was like, that's another thing that's running off people from shops too, or the shops that were starting to go that route, you know, that do that. I definitely saw a big difference in the shops that were doing that. They were going to go to eBay while you're standing right in front of you, and they'd give you an eBay price instead of what it was actually worth. I saw the Starman, Hellboy, Batman 2-issue miniseries from the 90s. Those books are worth $3 a piece. The guy was trying to sell them for $25 a piece because that's what he found on eBay.
Yep. That's how it goes. And Sleepy Reader just says, whenever a shop says, I'll order it for you, I immediately think I can get it quicker and probably cheaper if I order it myself.
Yeah.
That's why my shop
Sometimes,
doesn't bother with trade paperbacks for the most part.
Yeah.
Unless you want to pre-order it from them. Because it even said, it's like, you can get it off of Amazon cheaper and quicker than I can get it for you. So why am I going to carry trade paperbacks?
Yeah, I mean, we're living in weird times. There's decisions that I understand comic book shops have to make, to keep going. I mean, I don't want to say make them sound like the complete bad guy because they're not all doing it, but a lot of shops have to make tough decisions.
Right.
But
that's just reality. They can't stock trade paperbacks for full price when you can get them on Amazon for half price.
Yeah.
And they'll deliver them to you in 2 days for free.
That kind of ties in because earlier today I was reading the Strand bookstore, well-known bookstore across the world, tweeted earlier today that they were having problems.
Yeah.
And of course, then everybody tweets back, said, well, you don't realize that the owners actually own stock in Amazon and fired a bunch of their employees when they tried to form a union. So it kind of backfired and bit them in the ass.
Yeah, I noticed that too. I was like,
Okay. A little shout out here, Solid 4-String Ben. Go check out his channel. He gets these great hauls out there, and he's old school, old G. Dr. Silver Age, I always say go check him out. Great guy. I think he's starting to get back into the swing of making some, he's at least on Facebook. I think he's making some videos again when he can. Sleepy Reader, of course. But the one that got me here is La Raza popping back up. And I used to watch La Raza quite a bit, pushed her channel a bit, and I'm not going to put her business out there, but she became a mom. And I found out, somebody sent me a link where she got on a guy named Comic Crack's channel. And I think they had 1 or 2 live streams I know about. So
yeah, they just started.
Hopefully she still got some of her older videos up and stuff like that. Quite the artist also. So check all these guys out.
Mm-hmm.
All right, now that I killed the momentum.
And speaking of books, I'll have to show. I pulled this Chris Ware book down off my shelf to remind me, and I just want to look through it. And first of all, I wish I was more of a Chris Ware fan because I should be. He's one of these guys who I love his artwork. I love his book design.
Right.
I just find his writing pretty dull.
Yeah.
I don't find it dull, but it sure is depressing.
Yeah, I find it dull and unreadable at times, especially some of his dense stuff.
I got to page 4 of that thing and I stopped.
But I love looking through it. It's beautiful.
Yeah, the books are nice. Graphic design, they're really nice.
But and it's like anybody who's in the same category like as Chris Ware, the indie guy, I love them all. It's like, but I don't know why. But anyway, I was at my shop this week, and Roy, my comic shop owner, was like, "Oh, you're a Chris Ware fan? You want to see the new Chris Ware book?" I was like, "Well, not quite, but I want to see the new Chris Ware book." He brought me out this book. It's about artist edition size. It's 11 by 17.
Oh.
And it's filled with a lot of his designs. It's sort of a biography of him. He goes through all his process. He shows you his drawings, his inks, his colors. He shows you all these little models he makes. It was really, and of course, he's a very good book designer. So the book itself is gorgeous.
So is it kind of like the analog of a DVD extra where it's more interesting than the actual content itself?
Yes, it's like that.
Gotcha.
And it's it's oversized. It's like 11 by 17.
Uh-huh.
And it's a pretty thick book too. It's got a couple hundred pages in it.
Gotcha.
So I was like, "Oh, how much is this?" And I flipped it over, and it was $30. I thought it was $100 book.
Yeah,
that's what it looked like to me.
Yeah, that's not bad
I was
at
like,
all.
$30, and Roy was like, because Roy just ordered one for himself in the shop. He didn't even order any for the shop. And I was like, he's like, 30. I'm like, is this $30? He's like, I'm gonna go look this up. This can't be $30.
Right.
And he looked it up and was like, sure enough, it was $30. I'm like, for $30, order me one.
Right. Nice.
Because it was that nice. Like I said, I really, really like his artwork. He's got a great color sense.
Mm-hmm.
His design is beautiful. Everything about his work is beautiful. I just can't read it, which is really strange.
I get it.
A friend of mine says that he needs to be in a real good mood to even try to read a Chris Ware book. Otherwise, he'll want to kill himself.
I wouldn't know.
Pretty accurate, actually. Yeah.
I've never been able to read it enough to get depressed.
I think the last book that really depressed me was either Warren Ellis doing Ruins, where he took Marvels and made it really bad. You know, like you died of radiation poisoning and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it was bad. Or it was an issue of Hep Cats where the guy was homeless or something and his girlfriend was in the hospital.
I loved Hep Cats. And I was so pissed off when I found out that Martin Wagner wasn't going to do it anymore. I got mad.
You know what's wild is that it's over 30 years and people are still wanting more Hip Cats.
I think I got like a letter published in like one of the reprint volumes or something.
You can get a hold of Martin Wagner.
I did. And he said, it'll come out one of these days. And that message is like over 10 years ago. So,
I used to watch the guy when he was doing the Atheist show in Texas.
Sometimes these guys just, there's not the money in it, so they can't do it.
I completely understand. Yeah.
Oh, I'm just sitting here realizing we're talking about things that depress us and stuff, and I'm just, how could I leave out The Crow? I mean, you got to be careful when you read that one.
It's not exactly the feel-good hit of the summer.
Well, don't read
it. About Hep Cats, I think there's enough interest out there that if you were ever to do, if Martin Wagner ever wanted to do a 12, where there were 12 issues, right? You got 12 issues then?
I don't remember.
Somewhere in that range.
But if he put out a hardcover with the whatever came out, I think people would buy it.
Hep Cats would be an excellent thing for like a Kickstarter project.
I'm gonna show everybody Hip Cats because I'm starting to realize as we talk about these things, there's people like, what the hell,
Right.
Yeah.
Hep Cats, #1, special edition.
Yeah.
Let's see. #3. I don't know when I started getting this. It's like this. It's like this serious drama with what's the last one I got? 6? No, there's 10. There's 12. This must be the last issue.
Yeah, I'm thinking it was like 13. I got to go back and see what I have.
I think there was a reprint series that had a few issues in it. Yeah.
That looks like a last issue. Let's see.
Looks about right.
Nope. Next, Erica in New Orleans. So there was supposed to be another issue at least.
Yeah. Here you go, guys. Anybody wants to look up Hip Cats? There they are.
Then we've got, I've got 1, 3, 4, 5. I haven't read these. 6, 7,
the
9. I missed 8.
Yeah, the
10,
series was critically
12.
acclaimed, and then when you read it, it was slice of life reality.
Dude, we could do a whole show on nothing but books like that came out in the 90s where they never finished the series.
Yeah.
And this was earlier than the 90s, I think. Did this start in the 80s? It was hard to find.
It was the late 80s.
Yeah, looking at the Grand Comics database, it was self-published from 89 to 94.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then it was reprinted by Antarctic Press, 96 to 98.
I think I found it my senior year, and I think there's only like 3 or 4 issues out. I mean, I don't know. This is pre-internet, just whenever you could get out. And I think I saw a comic scene article on it or something, but I loved it. But there was this one issue, man, that I was like, oh,
it was heavy.
Yeah, heavy.
It's like you better have a hanky nearby somewhere.
This random #6 must be the reprint series.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
I think that's the series I have. The one you just showed, I think that's the volume that I have. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure if I have a first edition, it's probably like 1 book or something.
Yeah,
this behind me somewhere, but I'm not going to jump up and start digging.
This is a reprint of issue 1 that must have come out in some time because issue 3 is the first one I had. And I had this on my pull list and still didn't get every issue. So there must have been distribution problems with it too.
Well, I remember reading some online articles in the 2000s or something where somebody, tried to get a hold of him, and he was just, he had a bunch of excuses and a bunch of headaches on why he didn't.
I think there was a long gap between some of the issues too.
It's like to point out that slice of life has worn Sleepy Reader down. Not me. I still love
I can understand that. I like some slice of life books, and there are other ones that just bore me to tears.
Yeah, I tried reading a Harvey Pekar comic once, and man, I am not interested in how hard it is for you to get a hold of rare jazz records. Shut up! Get a life.
I read some Harvey Pekar comics in the 80s and didn't like it. But then I read some Harvey Pekar comics in the 2000s and liked it better, especially the stuff drawn by Dean Haspiel. He's just really cool.
The Harvey Pekar stuff, I got small doses, right? But the older he got, by the time he was doing stuff for Vertigo, he had 2 little 2-issue miniseries or something come out for them, and a few little things here and there. He got less interesting the older he got, because that's what happens as we get old and start bitching about everything. You chill out, and it's the little drama and stuff. But his stuff from the 70s and 80s, my favorite piece of Harvey Pekar is the phone book, where he started wondering about these other people named Harvey Pekar. Because when I was a kid, like 6 or 7 years old, I did the same thing. When we got a phone, I looked in the phone book. I'm like, there we are. And then I found out there was another Bill and Pam Mullins that lived right next door to us. I was like, oh my God, who are these people? Are they my real parents? Can I go live with them?
Once in the MySpace days, I got a, whatever it was called then, a friend request from somebody named Jared Osborne.
Yeah.
And he was going around collecting all the Jared Osbornes in the country on MySpace that he could find. I think he ended up collecting like 120 Jared Osborne.
I did that my first year on Facebook. I got all the Tim Mullinses. And there was one guy up in New Hampshire or Maine or something. He broke me. That was the most disgusting person I ever met. And when I tried to jump in on a conversation, he's like, we don't talk like that around here. And his picture was him taking a piss from behind. That was his that's the guy that broke me from it. So,
Tim, do you remember when Gary and I introduced you to the other Tim Mullins we knew before we knew you?
I don't know.
Is it one of the shows there at Dublin? Yeah.
Okay. Oh,
we're like, this is the other Tim Mullins.
Yeah.
And then the 2 True Believers I got this week. This is Avengers 111. Not my favorite period of Avengers, but I opened it up to this brilliant splash page and loved it.
Hold on,
the Dancing Scarlet Witch. Dance for us, entertain us, Scarlet Witch.
Oh my God, I remember that. Is that Don Perlin or who drew that?
It's Don Heck, I think. Don Heck and Mike Esposito. I just love Dancing Scarlet Witch. How can you? There's not enough dancing in comics these days, is there? You would never open up an issue of Avengers and see anyone dancing.
I don't see how that's a bad thing. I really don't.
And then the second one I got is, of course, Avengers 196, the first Taskmaster.
I've got that original issue here somewhere, but it's a little beat up.
So do I. I want to see I'm anxious to see this new printing. Give it a look.
Considering his first real appearance is the issue before,
Oh, no. He's going to start arguing first appearances.
Cameo versus first appearance.
Technically, Wolverine's first appearance was Hulk 180. He shows up on the last page.
Last panel. The panel was that big, and he's busting through a doorway. Somehow he's busting through a doorway when they're supposed to be out in the wilderness of Canada.
Hey, I carry my own doorway with me to bust through it and impress people.
Mm-hmm.
Doorway to adventure. Oh, I got this here in my pocket. Hold on.
No, I carry a toll so I can put it in the desert.
Anybody got a dime? Slim pickings.
One of the things that gets me is I follow Alex Ross on Facebook and Instagram. He actually puts art up, and I think he's got people that does it for him. I don't think it's actually him. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But one thing that kills me is anytime he puts up a Kingdom Come piece, people are like, will you hurry up and do the sequel? And they forget about Mark Waid's The Kingdom, which was awful. And I'm always like, dude, there is a sequel. It was Injustice Society. He did it, It's like a prequel though with Magog and stuff. Well, I found the Wizard magazine that announced it. Like, I'm not crazy. I have proof now. They did a whole article of.
I think I mentioned on here before that this winter I tried to read Kingdom Come and I could not make it through it. I know it's a lot of people's favorite. I didn't like it the first time I read it, and I'm like, oh, maybe maybe it was just me at the time. Everybody seems to like it. I'll give it another read. So I took it out of the library, and I could not even make it through it this time. I got about halfway through and started flipping pages.
I haven't read it in a long time.
It does feel a lot more mundane now.
Yeah.
It was more of a. I mean, I'll agree. A lot of it was more of a spectacle and an Easter egg hunt is what made it fun. You know what I mean? And then if you really wanted to enjoy the new characters, you had to get the trading card set to know who they were. He came out with it. They just wasted so many characters. But I say things about Kingdom Come that I say to people trying to read like Christ on Infinite Earths and stuff. You got to remember that stuff came out. Issue 1 was you had a month to read it and go through it and take your time. You waited a month. You read the second one. It's so there's so much stuff in it. It's so dense with some of these books that they weren't designed to sit down and read like that. You know,
there was a lot of woe is me in it too. A lot of we're the old heroes. We're being put out to pasture.
Well, he's got a whole panel of Superman carrying a board and 3 nails. I mean, he's telling you right to your face. That's what you're going to get. I mean, he's got a symbolically crucified Christ figure of Superman right there on the farm. You know, I'm like,
the woe is me angle really didn't age well.
Well, it came out in the 90s when it was all about heroin. I mean, seriously. I mean, I love my music from the early 90s and stuff, but there's a point where you're like, thank God Smash Mouth came out.
You know? Like, there's a sense I never thought I would hear.
I can't believe I said it, but I was there. Go ahead, man.
It also seemed to me like it was just, hey, we did Marvels, let's do the same thing at DC.
Well, the thing about that is Alex Ross was huge. I'm going by memory here. This was Alex Ross's baby, and they got Mark Waid on there to kind of funnel his story and argue with him and push him and whatever they did. And I had stuff here where Mark Waid was like, "Hey, man, I'm letting everybody know now this is Alex Ross's baby." As years have gone by, Mark Waid has taken more and more credit for Kingdom Come to the point where he's just like, "Yeah, I wrote it," and I'm like, "What?" I'm like, no.
Stan, is that you?
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to see him admit that he found the plot to Twilight of the Superheroes forgotten in some drawer.
Alan Moore. That's Alan Moore's forgotten crossover there, people. That I'm just we say
he's getting reprinted in some weird hardcover.
Yeah, I still think they're going to do it one day. I still think that Alan Moore crossover left over from the '80s is going to happen.
Oh, yeah. I have to tell you,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I just saw a pop up on Amazon this week too. I think it was announced. They're putting out a 3 or 4 volume set of Hate in hardcover.
Oh, wow.
Really nice. I wouldn't buy it right away because the price tag on it is $130. I was like, no thanks.
I can fix my car for 5 of those.
And I don't know. I have it over on my shelf there. They put out a 2-volume set of Neat stuff a couple of years ago, and it originally came out as $60, and I bought it last Christmas at $30. And I saw it on Amazon for $20 this week. So I'm like, you know what? I really want that Hate, but I can wait.
But you hate the price.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, man, what I think is going to happen is whatever happens with this pandemic, whenever it eases up or things looks like something back to normal, I think you're going to find a glut of comic books for cheap once people can get out and have these little mini cons or the flea market or whatever. And I think that's going to be one of the few times you really might want to make the effort to go to these things because people have been hoarding up stuff for a year. I mean, I've got 5 boxes of comics I was getting ready to sell that I got together in March, a week before this stuff hit.
Right.
And that's where my perspective is coming from. I think there's a lot of people sitting on stuff and they're going to be wanting to unload it. Give me the money now.
I've got 10 boxes that my friend gave me right in March. And I was like, I don't even know where I'm going to get rid of this stuff. But then, of course, I couldn't.
Right. Yeah, that's a huge problem with mine. I finally did that big purge, and I'm stuck with this. And I'm sitting here thinking I'm not the only one stuck with this stuff. So I feel like, yeah. Huh?
Last week when I was saying, I wonder if some are being late. I guess it's different. When I was saying last week that I read that card shops were doing really good because everybody was buying baseball cards and sports cards. I guess those are easier to ship.
I didn't think about that. I didn't even go that far with it.
Yeah, you have a point there. There are a lot.
If you want to get 100 baseball cards, that's $4 to ship in one of those boxes. Is boom, it's gone. If you want to get 50 comic books,
we reached that point where I've got a huge lag in the comment, and if I click on it, I'm going to get, if there's more there, they're going to come all at once.
Yeah.
And stuff, right? Do y'all see anything good in the comments there?
Sequential Ink says he loves hate.
He loves hate.
He loves hate and he hates love.
No, actually, someone was just telling. Oh, it was Roy, my comic shop owner, who I was telling I didn't like Chris Ware to. He was saying he was that way with Peter Bagg. He just didn't like Peter Bagg's stuff, even though he likes everybody liked Peter Bagg.
Peter Bagg grew on me. He grew on.
I loved him from. Well, I actually didn't love him from the beginning because I bought Neat Stuff, the first issue, and maybe a couple issues after that, and it was like, eh. And then it wasn't until the end when he started doing. He basically started doing hate with Buddy Bradley at the end of Neat Stuff first, and I had heard that it's real good. Once again, I don't even know where I heard it. Who was around to tell me that Neat Stuff had gotten really good? Mm-hmm. I don't know. I must have read it somewhere. I often wonder, in 1986, where was I hearing stuff about comics? I don't know. But I had heard that it was good, so I went and bought it. And I think the first issue of Neat Stuff I had bought in a while, I think was like the last issue. I bought it, and it was really good. And at the end, it said, "This is the last issue of Neat Stuff." I was like, "Oh," but it says, "Well, get hate when it comes out." I'm like, "Okay." So I immediately put hate on my pull list.
I tell you what, man, it's not so much that I think I got the answer about where you're hearing about comic books and stuff, but I mean, we've had the conversation before, and I've talked about it before, and all this stuff. But I'm not going to say I haven't found cool stuff because of the internet. You know what I mean? I'm not going to say that like it's
plenty of stuff.
That's what I'm getting at. But I mean, it seems like it was the quality of stuff. If you heard about a book in the 80s and 90s, it's because it was good. You know what I mean? Like, you get people talking, they had to be blown away by what they read. You know what I mean?
Right.
Well, what it is too, I was in high school from 80 to 84. And I have one friend who collected comics. I'm still friends with him. And he's the only one I knew. So it was just the two of us talking about comics. Then I went away to college from, 84 to 88. And my first school, I don't know if there was any, I went to a 2-year school, then transferred to a 4-year school. At that 2-year school, I don't think there were any comic collectors. It was a small school. But then at my 4-year school that I was there from 86 to 88, I met quite a few, at least half a dozen of my friends who collect comic books. But from 80 to 86, I'm not sure where I always heard about this. I mean, I would read anything I could find on comic books, and I'm sure I was buying magazines about comic books. Right. But sometimes when I say, I heard this, I don't know where I heard it or where I read it from back in those days.
I don't know. You sell that stuff and it makes me remember stuff. I'll never forget. I had to have been I was probably 13 or 14. I've been playing Dungeons and Dragons for a while, and a couple of us from an art 1 class. I must have been a freshman. We go out to this guy's house that they knew from the next town over, and when we got there, we ended up not playing D&D. I ended up watching them playing Robotech. He had this big table laid out, and it had little green mountains on it and little lakes, and I was just fascinated. Then I was mentioning something about comics. Now, the dude was a nice guy, and he lived in a mini mansion. I mean, seriously. And I kind of mentioned some comic books and stuff, and then all of a sudden he was like, "Oh yeah, go look at my closet in my room."
And I go in there, and he's got this long box. And at the time, mid '80s, there he had every issue of the X-Men. That's the only comic book he collected. Now, my whole point of that is saying it's amazing to hear things about people talking about comics and where I hear about this stuff. And then right around the corner, you got some guy just likes the X-Men. So, he went and got the entire run of X-Men. You know what I'm saying? It's a very cool hobby like that when you run across people. He wasn't into comics, but he liked his damn X-Men. It was just so bizarre to see every issue. And this guy was like 17. Yeah,
it's like when I've said this before. When I was in, grade school or junior high, I think it was. I had a friend who was like 2 years older than me. He collected comics, and he pointed me to all the good stuff. That was from before my time, and he'd go and guys his age or maybe a little older, he'd go, so and so is selling his collection. You got to get the Daredevils. So and so is selling his collection. You got to get the Conan. You got to get. So I just get whatever he told me. But
I'm the guy that as we're flipping through the comics at the comic book convention, if I run across a good book, I'll flip it out, throw it in front of somebody. Like, if you don't buy that, I'll buy it for you. I'm that guy, so I totally get that.
Sleepy Reader just said he stumbled onto Bag and Chester Brown at a shop and had no idea what others thought about them. I can remember who told me about Chester Brown. Only because it was at my second school, and a friend had some friends come and visit her. What were their names? They had a weird name, Bill and Gish. I don't remember what their last names were, but their first names were Bill and Gish. And they worked at like a comic shop somewhere up near Syracuse or Albany. I can't remember which one. And they came down. They were just visiting their friend at college, and they heard we liked comics. Like I said, both of them worked at a comic shop. They're like, "Oh, you got to read this Yummy Fur. It's the most crazy thing you've ever read," and handed me like the first 3 issues of Yummy Fur, maybe. And I immediately went out and got them myself.
Comic Crack was talking about Peter Bagg a couple of videos ago, and he mentioned that he can't think of anyone with a similar style. And the thing that immediately popped to mind is this Brazilian cartoonist that I know called Angeli. And because he had a series that I absolutely loved. I think I have some comics somewhere. And it's not identical, but I see some similarities in the way that they draw the characters they draw the characters' faces and heads and some movement. It's not as plastic. Peter Bagg's characters are very plastic, and Angeli's are not. But there's some. You look at the characters' heads, and you kind of notice that similarity.
Well,
there were some guys in the '90s who vibed off of Bag. I don't even remember who they are now.
But I'm not sure that this guy knew who Peter Bagg was, because he started his own magazine in Brazil in 1983. Okay, if you try googling Angeli.
Now, I'll do that. But my thing is when I saw Peter Bagg's stuff, it wasn't so much I was thinking of him being unique. Angeli.
Angel, just put an I.
Yeah, but his stuff reminded me of like stuff I saw. Whoa, Angel.
Okay, that's not it.
Give me a series or a comic.
No, I'm gonna.
Tim, put in Angeli comic artist.
Or Angeli Brazil.
Okay.
Yeah, that's more like it. Still not much stuff. Yeah.
Tell me this is him.
Yeah, that's one of his characters. The character that's called in English it would be called Bob Spit. Is a punk anarchist.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
but even though he's a punk anarchist, he has a lot of he has people following him around, wanting to be like him. And he's always telling them to bugger off. And that just makes them. It's like in the Life of Brian when they go after him. Let's follow our savior. Stop following me.
It's like Cheech Wizard in that regard.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I look at this stuff and I just see like underground comics and stuff for the 60s and 70s. You know, I mean, I don't know if that's what they're trying to do, but
Yeah, well, maybe a bit.
I love it. You know, I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I would definitely read this book, you know, just by what I'm seeing here. That's awesome.
see that one with there was one image there with a girl sitting on a toilet. That is what the Kathy comic strip should be.
We're going to get this up.
Sequential Geek has an interesting observation about Peter Bagg here.
Looks like Kathy with sunglasses there. If you really look at it, there.
Yeah, and after too many different types of drugs.
That looks like Peter Bagg stuff.
I'm surprised that Kathy doesn't take drugs, but if she did, she would become like that one. She's called Rebordosa.
I never thought I'd see a day that I'd be talking about Kathy with anybody. This is hilarious.
In the context of Peter Bagg.
Observation. He said Bagg was this wave of new. I had quit comics after my first 10 years. Then 5 years later, by like 95 in Seattle, I find people who have nothing to do with comics but just read Hate or Eight Ball was dope. Yeah. There was a time in the early 90s when Hate and 8 Ball were like popular with people who didn't read comics. Yeah. And then it just stopped.
Same thing with Sandman. There were a lot of people that read that. It had nothing to do with comics otherwise.
But I don't think that ever stopped.
You see, I saw Hate, and I was already like into Ralph Snart and stuff, you know. So I mean, Snart didn't really blow me away. You know? So. But the people who were like into just reading certain books and stuff like that. Yeah, Sandman was one.
But Hate and 8 Ball became like the official comics of the grunge counterculture for a brief time in the early 90s.
That's what I was getting ready to say. I think a lot of it, at least around here, and Scott's in the same area, man. So I'll diverge to him and stuff. But I think a lot of it came off of college campuses. You know?
Absolutely. Probably. In this area, absolutely.
Yeah, yes. That's why I'm being careful here. I was talking to Jared. He's up north. We're down here in the Mid-South, sort of, and.
I was really lucky because a friend of mine I went to high school with had a roommate that was into comics, and he was the one that got me into Sandman and The Tick and a few other things at the time I can't remember off the top of my head, but I was really lucky that I knew him because he turned me on to a lot of good stuff I wouldn't have known about otherwise.
In the mid-'80s, in 86 and 87, there was one girl at my school who was a punk rocker, and she and all her punk rock friends were into Love and Rockets. That was the only comic they ever read because it was about punk rock girls. So,
yeah, I mean, I'm trying to sit here and think, but I think there was one guy named John, and he died a summer later. I didn't find out till later. I was like 7. He's the one that kind of got me around into reading X-Men around the Dark Phoenix saga time. He loved that, right? Other than that, anything I think I found because I would just start randomly wanting to try something different here and there. I would love to have had somebody kind of turn me on to stuff.
Yeah.
Comic scene, art would draw me to it. Usually it was art. Art would draw me to it, you know.
Well, for me, it was, when I got my subscription to Comic Buyer's Guide, that just opened up a whole new world of stuff I hadn't been exposed to yet.
Yeah. Total Eclipse, when Eclipse Comics had that Crisis-like Infinite Earth series, and I was able to find an issue here and there at like a bookstore at the Mercer Mall, Walden Books. I was wanting more Heat, more Airboy. I would find things like that. It would get me curious. You know?
And here's a book I dug out and wanted to show you just because I look at this one a lot, besides the fact that it's Ditko Doctor Strange. But I love the printing on this one. This is one of the old Fireside books. A thin one from 79.
Yeah.
But the printing on it is just so nice.
Yeah,
because
it's clean.
It's still got that simple newsprint coloring style.
Yeah, I would describe that as crisp.
But it's very crisp and on this white paper. And it's got all the original Ditko stuff. Plus, it's got the annual with Spider-Man in it, and it ends with a Barry Smith Doctor Strange.
Gotcha.
And it's just to this day, this might be my favorite Doctor Strange trade paperback.
Yeah, it's got a feel to it that you're just not around. It's like vinyl. It's like finding vinyl. Vinyl came back around.
I remember as a kid, the library in the town next, not the one I was in, but the next town over, had those Marvel reprints like Son of Villains or whatever the title of it is. I can't think off the top of my head, but they had a bunch of those, and I like those.
Sons of Origins.
Yes,
Bring on the bad guys.
Bring on the bad guys is the one I was trying to think of.
Yeah, I don't even know how much this goes for. This is my childhood copy still. But if you can find a copy of this, it's some of the nicest printed Doctor Strange. Because it's all still white, the paper, and it's just so sharply printed that it works so well for me.
Yeah, somewhere I have an Incredible Hulk kind of trade like that but the cover's ripped off around the same time era.
Yeah, I have that one too. It's oversized. It's a little taller than that one.
Yeah.
It's got all the earliest Hulk in it. I think mine's over there. Oh, there it is.
Yeah, I think it's got that classic Bruce. It's black, and it's got a black cover, but it's got Bruce Banner turned into the Hulk. That's it. That's the one. That's the one. I feel like that one about the way you feel about that Doctor Strange.
Yeah, I've been this is my childhood copy too. So I've had this around. What year did this come out? 78.
Yeah,
I used to get these for Christmas and birthdays, and along with Mego figures. Loved them.
Dude, I got socks and underwear, and here you are.
Yeah, I'm glad you spoke up, Scott. I'm glad you tell him, Scott. You tell him. Tell him, Scott.
Oh God, that's funny.
I can't help it that your parents were cruel to you.
I just got a bike from my grandmother.
You don't know it, man. I mean, I had to watch Hee Haw on TV back in the day.
Yeah.
So,
oh man,
that's when I would go into a different room and
I don't care what they say. The only thing that got me through those nights at Hee Haw with the grandparents were the women on there. Oh my God! I can't remember.
You're not talking about Lulu either. Yeah.
Well, there's Barbie Benton. I found out later.
Yeah, she was on. Yeah, that's true.
And then there was a girl. I don't know what her name was, but she was one of the original daughters on Petticoat Junction. And I can go on and on. And now, yeah. Oh man. Well, guys, we have been on here almost 2 hours. 9 minutes shy of 2 hours. We have kept 10 to 13 people on this. We get down to 8. Now, I don't usually really worry about that. I don't usually worry about that stuff, but it's damn nice when you do notice that. So I think we all appreciate everybody hanging in there. And but we'll wind it down if you want.
We got to give it to Sequential Geek because he's been here for the whole time.
Yep. Yep. He's been talking to us and talking to everybody. So, yeah, if you're watching this on the rewind, I know we're saying this towards the end here, but definitely turn on the live chat. It's a big part of the show here. I mean, that was a fun show, man. That was all right.
Yeah, pretty good time.
We all vented and bitched like the old men we are, and maybe Paul.
And we liked it.
Yeah,
I already count as an old man because I already have bones that can tell how humid it is.
I think the only thing I'm envious of you all is you kept your hair. That's all I'm saying.
Who else's hair would you keep?
I'm just saying it would be so much more graceful if I just could have kept a head of hair. But anyway, any last words, guys?
Read more comics. Well, I'll steal cartoonist kayfabe's line.
It too, Brutus.
Yeah, we're supposed to. If it was a normal year, it would be the beginning of the Amadora Comics Festival here in Portugal.
Nice.
Unfortunately, we can't. But they're having a virtual con, and it's kind of ridiculous because this is mostly an art. It's supposed to be mostly an art exhibit, and they're going to do some virtual exhibits, and I have no idea they're going to do that. It's going to be a bit lame. Yeah, nobody's really nobody of the regulars are hyped for it, and but I don't know.
Virtual just isn't as good. That's all it is.
Yeah. But I mean, if there were a few guys, who did some virtual conventions, but they were fun because they got some artists to show up and talk about their work. And yeah, this the official ones were the most boring ones.
I like somebody's restraint. Every time their phone goes off, they just turn it off. I'm impressed. I'm just saying.
If somebody called me now, I wouldn't take it because it's 1 a.m.
Yeah. I'm not sure how this works. I'm pretty sure I'll be here Friday, but what is, I need to look at the calendar, Halloween up, or is our next show going to fall on Halloween here in America?
No, Halloween's on the 31st.
Okay.
Yeah, but it is. No, yeah. Right.
Okay. I will make every effort to be here next week. If not, I'm sure you guys will do it on Jared's show. When it gets around the holidays, it's weird for me. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Between my work, holidays and full moons cause a problem. And so we'll see what we can do there. But that's about it, man. This was a fun show. And I figure I'll probably have stuff to dig out here when I start putting, rearranging all this stuff again, where I put up this rack, man. If I find anything interesting, I'll just save it for next week on here.
Who else talks about Hepcats and Thundor?
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, I'm sitting here like, look, I found my Destroyer magazines and nobody judged me. I was like, it was like, you act like it was like I had seen them.
I was going through some stacks of stuff I have, and I'm pulling out stuff I don't even remember buying, and like, this is really cool. This is almost like Christmas. I discovered stuff I bought for myself 5 years ago.
You got stuff you bought in box straight up. I've seen you do it. And I've only been to your place, 3 or 4 times. I remember. Yeah. I've seen it. You need to get a camera because you've got a whole. He's got hardbacks.
Oh, I need to get rearranged. I need to get rearranged so I can put stuff.
Yeah,
and vintage stuff. I mean,
I'm not buying into that. I'm going to get a camera thing. He's told us that too many times. He's never getting a camera.
Yeah. We'll crowdfund it for him.
I was going to say, a GoFundMe. So.
We'll have a whole show that's going to be a telethon for Scott.
Yeah.
And
all
the ghost of Jerry Lewis shows up.
All super chats go to Scott Connors. Get me a camera fund.
Yeah. We'll be a 24-hour telethon. We'll be an hour 23 going. We've raised $16 so far. We only need to get to 20.
If you want this to stop,
and then you forgot about the tax.
If you want us to quit, just go ahead and send him a camera.
I'll show you the issues of Ralph Snart that Tim probably doesn't have. So.
Well, Mr. Grisky, I'm glad you made it, but we're signing off, man. Okay, as always, ring that bell. Oh, here we go. Here we go.
Sleepy Meter's funding your camera. There you go.
He just wants to see my Prince Valiant books.
Yeah.
I want to see your Prince Valiant books.
I need to get a big camera because a couple of those Prince Valiant books
I want to see his Prince Valiant looks with the wig, shirtless, sword.
Dude, you don't want to see that. Trust me, you do not want to see that.
I think it's just. I
look more like Gru probably than Prince Valiant.
We just got to get you a fat dog. I mean, that's it.
Fat dog. Sure, though.
All right. Later, guys. Everybody be excellent to each other.
Bye.
Have a good night, y'all.